This program is made possible by funding from Humanities Guåhan, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the Federal CARES Act.
Ihagas si man malufan na tempo. I Pasifiko na tasi, guaha undongkulo na guian. Esti na guian, mampus dongkulo na akanu I islan Guåhan. Ikinano niya, mampus megge na akanu esta I entalo I isla. Sa asot tay tao man mo nyo para ilinala niya sa ni mamayla na tempo. Ito mo na matungo na debi no guaha humatsobi. Lo imam pescador toda swetin niya. Istaki hundia. Guaha man medgot na man hobensita na famalawan. Gi isla mausa I fetsania jan itiningo niya para fan macoco todo siya sa koni esti idang kulo na guihan. Pogo guaha mas peligro gi itasi jan itano. Mas dangkulo ki idang kulo na guihan. Mas dangkulo ki isla. Afa esti na peligro I basura.
Previously on From Our Nånas for Our Nenis. In the last episode, we took a look at a few of the solutions we found for our waste crisis. We met with small recyclers and waste-to-wealth businesses just starting up in Micronesia.
We learned about the transformation of the Puerto Rico dump in Saipan into the Eloy S. Enos Peace Park.
In this episode, we will look at more solutions, like big businesses and legislation, for more ideas on how we can curb our plastic and waste problem.
And spoiler alert, it's going to take all of us together. The waste crisis is something that we all contribute to, as businesses, as consumers, and as government entities.
All of those elements are needed to come together to solve the problem. Because we all have a role, we all do, you know. All companies have a role because we all create some kind of waste. And unless we all take a look inside, and that's kind of like what the bank's been doing over the last couple of months, is really looking at how can we inside, you know, really address a lot of these issues like waste and paper and energy reduction and all of that.
If there are people who want to create a business that is part of the solution, is Bank of Guam doing anything actively to help support them? Are there any programs that you could talk about and let our audience know?
Yes, we're looking at that, not only in terms of our lending products, but also in terms of grants. We're looking at that, but it's been on our radar for a while. But one of the things that we did do is, as you may be aware, we really staffed up incredibly for the pandemic for the SBA PPP loans, the Payroll Protection Plan programs. And we did that because we knew that a lot of our businesses really needed help. Our goal really was to stay within the confines of the deadlines and to assure that as many of our customers would qualify so that they would get help specifically for this time. But definitely the notion of packaging and bundling green programs from loans and deposit products and such, and keeping it very digital is going to be really critical moving over. And it's not just for green programs, but the way we do things. Process is very much as important as loans for farmers, loans for sustainability businesses, loans for businesses or nonprofits that are looking to do good in the community. That that has been on our radar for quite a while. I think when we started to ask people, we wouldn't just say, yes, we're going to support you. We go, you know what? Before we make a commitment, what are you doing? How are you, either recycling or using less plastic? And you can't just say no on this, no plastic, no this, no that. If you're going to say that, we must offer solutions. If you're not going to use it, what else can I use?
It's going to take a system-wide view and a community effort in learning about how we can contribute to the problem and how we can make changes.
All businesses, fuel companies, transportation, restaurants, the hospitality industry, every part of government, of course, academics, the schools. For me to blame it on that just doesn't make any sense, because it's not looking at joint solution. Being responsible about waste is an everyday decision. It's a decision every day we make.
We took a look at small businesses that focus on being part of a circular economy. They took waste and turned it into something new.
But what is the responsibility of the businesses that create these items in the first place?
But what is the responsibility of the big businesses that bring these items here in the first place?
What is extended producer responsibility?
Extended producer responsibility is a concept where manufacturers and importers of products should bear a significant degree of responsibility for the environmental impacts of their products throughout the product life cycle, including upstream impacts inherent in the selection of materials for the products, impacts from manufacturer's production process itself, and downstream impacts from the use and disposal of the products.
Producers accept their responsibility when designing their products to minimize life cycle environmental impacts, and when accepting legal, physical, or socioeconomic responsibility for environmental impacts that cannot be eliminated by design.
For example, companies that produce a product like drinks could choose to use plastic #1 for their packaging rather than Tetra Pak, because Tetra Pak is a lot more difficult to recycle.
Before a product is sold, it needs to be evaluated by retailers on where it will go once it's used. Retailers and wholesalers in our region could do more to evaluate the recycling systems in place and order less products that come in packaging that has no option downstream other than the landfill.
Businesses like MISA, Yap Eco-Leaf Solutions, and Numatlu Refillery are doing their best to provide customers with zero-waste solutions. MISA and Numatlu Refillery do their best to provide their customers with the option to refill or recycle their packaging once you're done with it. We spoke to the founder of MISA, Aguaran Iriarty, about his business model and about mindful consumption.
Hafaday everyone, my name is Our Neni. I am the founder of Micronesia Guam. MISA is a social entrepreneurship, and our goal is to basically raise awareness, right, in terms of waste consciousness and mindful consumption on Guam. Overall, in general, without getting too technical, being aware of what you're buying and what that purchase is doing both upstream and downstream, right? Or buying a reusable straw, which was our very first product that we launched. That was sort of the gateway to a lot of people's awakening of the plastic problem on Guam. The whole premise of the business is to empower consumers back home to be able to purchase these things, because I created MISA. The reason why I created MISA was because I was ordering things on Amazon or online or flying off island to buy these things. People back home didn't have these options available to them.
But even for people like Aguaran, who give customers the tools to make individual conscious change, that's not enough.
And now I'm in Washington, D.C. I've been here for about 5 months. I'm getting my master's in sustainability management, which is sort of right up the alley of what I've been doing the past few years. And my goal really, I'm desperate to go back home and to make a difference, because if there's another thing that drives me bonkers besides illegal dumping, is the brain drain that Guam and so many other indigenous communities go through really on a daily basis. And I mean, I don't want to generalize, because some people do have to leave, right, their homeland to make a better life for whatever circumstance they're going through. But I think the only way to make home better is if all of these tomorrows, right, who have left to educate themselves and to become better, return home at some point to make the island a better place. Because the last thing I want is for Chamorros to be a minority in their own homeland, or for us to. So I hope to go back to help contribute and help to make a difference in any little way I can.
Hafade Toruhamzu, Guahusi Jasmine, creator of New Matlo, a new zero waste refillery on wheels, and I'm back today to give you more tips, tricks, and insight on how to begin your low waste journey. Today we're finally on to the 5th of the 5 big R's of zero waste living, which is rot, otherwise known as composting. Food, more than any other single material, enters our landfill facilities. Composting is a natural solution to our food waste because it is the natural way to recycle dead organic material. This rotting material, when done correctly, will actually produce the most nutrient-dense fertilizer, also known as humus. And so if it's natural, it can rot. And if it can rot, it does not belong in our garbage. Here are some tips on how you can begin to rot your food waste or compost starting now. Tip number 1, begin your own compost. Most of us on Guåhan have the land availability to start our own compost. It's as simple as digging a hole to the ground or purchasing an actual bin. All you need to do is make sure you have equal parts green waste, such as veggie odds and ends, to brown waste, such as leaves, twigs, mixed paper. Make sure those two are in equal balance to create a moist environment for the rotting to occur. And the last thing you need is just some patience. Step number 2 is to vermicompost. Vermicompost involves worms, and it's actually the fastest way you can compost. Worms will eat your rotting food waste, and then they will poop it out, and their poop will turn into humus. Amot Tatautano Farms in Dedido provides these worms if you're interested in purchasing some to start your own vermicompost. And lastly, if you cannot compost, find a farmer or gardening friend who can take your food waste and use it to their advantages. My pro tip is, before you compost, freeze your veggie odds and ends, carrot tops, broccoli stems, kale stems. I have some here in a freezer bag, and when you're ready, you can make some awesome soup stock with it by just boiling these odds and ends until they create a nice broth. You can strain out the waste and then toss it into the compost. That way you're really using your food scraps as much as you can before they must rot into the ground. If you like these tips and tricks, please support us on our Kickstarter launching next month in May. Follow us on Instagram at New Matlo Refillery. This has been Jasmine from New Matlo Refillery, wishing you the very best on your low waste journey. And please don't forget that every individual effort truly does count towards building our collective resiliency against the plastic pandemic.
How can government bans help to prevent the stream of plastic and other waste from entering our islands in the first place?
Starting July 1st, 2020, it became unlawful for a person to import one-time use disposable styrofoam and plastic food service items, such as plates, cups, eating utensils, and plastic shopping bags.
Buenas and Hafade, the Committee on Environment, Revenue, and Taxation and Procurement is calling its virtual public hearing to order. The purpose of this virtual public hearing is to receive testimony on Bill number 373-35 COR, sponsored by Senator Regine Biscoe-Lee. It's an act to amend Section 54B 103 of Chapter 54B, relative to banning the sale or distribution of disposable carry-out bags made of paper and biodegradable or compostable plastic, including plastics from bio-based polymers, by retail and wholesale establishments on Guam.
All across the Pacific, and indeed all around the world, many communities are making necessary, tough, and sometimes unpopular decisions in the name of environmental sustainability. We don't even have to look very far to see how our neighbors in Palau and the Federated States of Micronesia are leading the way in this field. I hope we can come to a consensus on this expansion, especially with so many of our members already supporting the principles behind this bill. It is a time for us to honor our ancestors, to reflect on the values that kept our homelands bountiful and beautiful for millennia. And I implore all of us to continue to invoke the centuries-old wisdom that before any decision, our first consideration should be, is this going to make things better or worse for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren? We are not here for a 3-year tour of duty or a brief professional stint. We are caretakers, entrusted to leave Guam in a better place for the next generation to inherit this treasure.
And I was really proud of that work. And in my mind, when I was introducing it, it was just kind of like a no-brainer. Of course, we would want to, ban plastic bags, but it was much more of an uphill battle than I had initially thought it would be. I introduced it, I was really excited, and I really have to thank the community for helping to engage and inform and educate our community in order to have it be as receptive and as it was, and have it be adopted into law in the way that it was. So I'm really grateful to the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability, MCCA, a number of folks in the community like Peggy Denny and other advocates who've come out and lend their voices just in support of this and many other efforts to protect our resources. But there were also a number of people who, called into local talk radio shows or wrote opinion editorials or comments in Facebook about how silly this plastic bag ban was, and that we had so many other monumental problems. Why should we be focusing on plastic bags? And my take in a lot of these things is we can, try to focus on a number of things. We can care about protecting our children from, putting more money into child protective services in the same bill, in the same budget bill that we can, increasing funding and resources for the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. We can do that as a government, and we should. And just because something is daunting or something has never been done before doesn't mean that we can't start having the conversation. It doesn't mean that we can't, bring ourselves one step further. But I also would be remiss, I think, if I didn't mention that this bill originated, the idea for this bill originated in the Guam Youth Congress. And so it was something that was introduced and passed by our youth. And that to me was pretty incredible. The fact that, our young people, they already have this idea of the way that they want to see our island and our region moving forward. And so it was really a privilege for me to be able to take up this legislation, work with our legal counsel, work with some of our other stakeholders and perfect it, make it better, and then introduce it and have it passed.
How can the solutions we covered help bring us to a more zero-waste future?
Extended producer responsibility, placing more responsibility on importers, retailers, and manufacturers to produce products that are more readily recyclable or zero waste will do a lot to slow the influx of these materials into our waste stream.
Government policy, supporting bans that we know are effective in other places on materials like styrofoam, plastic bottles, and single-use plastics can also do a lot to reduce our waste as an island. Studies have also shown that universal trash pickup, along with more frequent recycling pickups, can help to make the solid waste system more efficient and cost-effective.
Individual responsibility. While individual responsibility is often shared as a solution to our waste issues and other large systemic issues, we believe that our individual effort in putting on the social and political pressure to get larger entities like big businesses and the government to take this issue seriously are important. We can do our best to lead perfect, zero-waste lifestyles, but this responsibility must be shared by all of us if we want to see a true change. So by all means, please reduce, reuse, and recycle, and stay aware of how our consumption affects our environment. But we can also make a big impact by pressuring lawmakers and big businesses to do their part as well.
One issue that we see is that environmental understanding and education can be limited to certain kinds of careers or fields of study, but we all need to know about our relationship to the environment.
Our waste crisis is a reflection of the global problem, which is rampant consumerism and capitalism.
Our islands will be catching oceanic plastic from around the world well into the foreseeable future.
But this shouldn't lead us to apathy about our own ability to change our habits. We should look towards creating systems that are circular again, just like nature intended.
We have much wisdom to learn from the ways of our ancestors by using traditional technology to create regenerative solutions and biodegradable products.
We did not inherit this earth to keep it for ourselves. We are simply borrowing it for our children.
We all live here. We live on the front lines of this issue, and our habits and the businesses that run here, the things that the government does, all have an impact on our environment, which has an impact on us. The big fishes of our time are everywhere, and they can be hard to see.
But if we look closely at the world around us, we can see all the damage that it's caused. We hope that this series reminds us of our place, a bridge between the wisdom of our Nonas to the future for our Nenis. Most importantly, what kind of home will we leave for them? If we continue to work together, we can weave a net of solutions.
Just like our ancestors, we have the ability to catch this fish and save our islands.
Historia ni Island tahu tapanu kita Marianas luta tinian sai panzan Island Guåhan.
For Micronesia Climate Change Alliance, we know that the work here is not done. Our goal is to share a solution that we have come up with our community. As a result, we will be sharing worksheets to go along with this series to be included as a part of curriculum for teachers and any educators that are interested. But the learning does not stop there. This isn't just for students or for teachers. This can be for everyday people who want to learn more about our waste crisis and help us weave a net of solutions so that we can fight this big fish.